Imagine standing right in front of a government official, breathing, speaking, undeniably alive, only to be told you don't exist. Your physical presence is overruled because a database has categorized you as deceased or bankrupt. This systemic blindness is a core feature of civilization, built into the very architecture of how we manage large societies. For the vast majority of human history, reality was defined entirely by what we could touch, taste, and see. Success meant tracking a boar through the brush or finding a patch of edible mushrooms. There was no abstract middleman. Life was a series of direct sensory experiences. We can still see this tangible past in the lives of early peasants. Their world was bounded by the weight of a wooden plow, the smell of the oxen, and the feeling of wet, heavy earth beneath their bare feet. Truth was found in the physical labor of the fields. The shift occurred with the rise of the scribe. This new literate elite stopped interacting with the mud and started managing the world through abstract symbols. They were the first class of people to experience reality through the mediation of ink on papyrus. Eventually, the administrators running the state saw the world exclusively through written texts. To a clerk in a room like this, a ledger wasn't just a record, it was the reality. The markings on a page determined who owned the land and what a human life was worth, regardless of what was happening outside the office walls. As our societies grew, we effectively split into two parallel dimensions: the objective physical world where we live, and the all-powerful paper reality that actually governs our movements and our rights. In 1940, these two dimensions collided in the most literal sense. Thousands of Jewish refugees were physically trapped in France, with Nazi tanks rapidly closing the distance to the border. Their survival depended on a single document, an authorization visa from the Portuguese government. Without that specific piece of paper, the physical border remained an impassable wall, despite the life and death stakes. Working for 10 days and nights straight, the Portuguese consul Aristides de Sousa Mendes decided to hack the system. He ignored his orders and manually issued thousands of unauthorized visas, his rubber stamps striking paper until he collapsed from sheer exhaustion. When those refugees reached the border, the guards were indifferent to their human suffering, yet they remained deeply obedient to the sanctity of the document. Because Sousa Mendes had stamped the paper, the system recognized the refugees as authorized, spiriting 30,000 people out of a death trap. In a world governed by bureaucracy, the official record can possess more authority than physical danger. For those refugees, a bit of ink and a rubber stamp became the most powerful shield in existence. This power to reshape reality has a darker side. In 1958, Mao Zedong launched the Great Leap Forward, demanding that China's agricultural output double or triple almost overnight to fund his industrial ambitions. Local officials faced a choice: admit the targets were physically impossible, or fabricate the numbers to please the party. To survive the political pressure, they chose to build a fictional farming miracle on paper. As these reports climbed the bureaucratic ladder, the lies compounded. Each administrator, eager to show success, exaggerated the previous numbers, adding zeros with the stroke of a pen until the central government was told grain production was 50% higher than it actually was. The government believed its own ledgers. They exported millions of tons of real grain in exchange for heavy machinery, assuming they had plenty left to feed the population. This collision between a paper fantasy and physical scarcity resulted in the worst famine in history. These glowing reports of success were so convincing, they spread across the globe. Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania, was deeply impressed by the Chinese model and resolved to modernize his country's agriculture using the same collective strategy. Nyerere used military force to relocate hundreds of thousands of peasants into collective farms, following the script of the Chinese miracle almost to the letter. The official state protocols in the capital documented bustling, productive farms, but when the villagers arrived at these coordinates, they found nothing. No tools, no houses, and no fields, only the empty land that the paper records claimed was a paradise. Within a decade, Tanzania collapsed from a major food exporter to a nation unable to feed itself. Because the state leaders were managing the ink on the reports rather than the soil in the ground, the result was a catastrophic failure of reality. We originally invented writing to serve as a modest reflection of the world, a way to count grain or record a season. But as history progressed, written language transformed from a descriptive tool into a mechanism of control. By habituating society to prioritize abstract symbols over sensory experience, the literate elite found they could reorganize the physical world to fit their ledgers, moving populations and reshaping landscapes with a stylus. The recurring tragedy of civilization is that when the official record and the physical truth disagree, it is almost always the physical truth that is forced to give way. You see this legacy today in every complex bureaucracy. Whether dealing with tax authorities or educational systems, the tangible facts of your life often matter less than the specific way your data is entered into a form. When you fight a system that refuses to acknowledge the obvious truth in front of it, you are witnessing that system's core design. It is a machine built to be obedient only to the ink, prioritizing the paper record over the physical reality it was meant to describe.